the sync industry is still operating as it was 30 years ago. We see it as a crisis for artists and songwriters. The longer as an industry we fail to improve the experience of our customers, the more attractive the alternatives to using commercial music are going to seem. The robots haven't even started yet. When the robots really kick in, we need to be ready.
Yeah, when the libraries are just full of AI music and you don't even know that and you're like, oh, this matches my song, I'll pay a couple bucks.
The digitization of the music industry has been enormously successful, certainly for labels and publishers, also for a lot of artists and songwriters.
Absolutely.
So our view is, why should sync be any different? Sync metadata is things like, is this song available for a Meet advert? Yes, no, maybe. Once we've standardized that sync metadata format, sync can actually move from the analog world into the digital age. This is not only the solution, the opportunity for artists and songwriters is immense.
Absolutely.
We do this not because it's easy, but because we thought it would be easy.
Tom, are you ready?
I sure am.
We're doing this. How are my eyebrows? Perfect?
No.
I'm going to have hair like you real soon, I think.
I'll welcome that day.
I'm heading in that direction, unfortunately. All right. What is up, everybody? Welcome to On The Go with Elmo. We're in London. We're at Dean Street Studios. Crazy, legendary recording studio. Thank you so much, Dean Street, for having us, especially because since this is On The Go, this came together today. Sitting with me today, my dear friend, Tom Stingemore.
Hello.
Hello, Tom.
Hey.
So we've been hanging every day out here in London because we're boys and that's what we do. But also we've been having the most amazing conversations because Tom is one of the main guys in sync. He knows more about sync than 99.9% of people on this planet. And sync is such an important thing in music to artists, to the companies supporting artists. And he is calling for a global modernization of sync right now. And he's actually building the solution. So we're going to talk all about his new company, but a little bit about Tom. So before he's now started his own company and working on that, he was the president of Hipgnosis, which is a multi-billion-dollar song fund, 60,000 or 70,000 songs in that catalog.
And they're all pretty big.
And they're all huge, tens of thousands of number one hits. It's a one of the most impressive catalogs in the world, if not the most impressive catalog at this point. So he was president of Sync there. Before that, he was running Sync with BMG, and even before that at Universal Music Group. So the man knows a lot. So Tom, let's talk about Sync for a moment.
Let's do it.
Okay, for something new for you to explore. So before we get into all the problems of where Sync is at today, can we just talk about really what is Sync and why is it important to an artist?
Good question. So sync in a nutshell is the licensing of commercial music into film, TV, advertising, games, and any other form of visual media or even podcasts. So the reason it is important to artists is, firstly, there's two main sides to it. One, our partners in the entertainment industry pay artists to use their songs, and the other is that our partners in the entertainment industry, by using our artists' music, also give our artists platforms for more people to discover their music. So there's many huge examples of this. Many of your listeners will be thinking of them as they listen to this. So in a nutshell, that's what it is, and that's why it's important.
So it's a great way for artists to make money, is essentially, and to get bigger, right? A lot of the time, sync can break an artist. You get a great song in a great movie, and next thing you know, the artist is famous from that sync or from a commercial. It's funny, I was just in Japan, and they knew certain songs from America only because they were commercials songs. So like there's global sync, like what happens to an American band or a UK band that gets a sync spot in Japan, it can blow them up in that market. So you can explore how it blows up your market, how it monetizes your music. And then especially what you were doing most recently with Hipgnosis, correct me if I'm wrong, but Hipgnosis was buying catalogs. And then really the main thesis behind it was, how do you monetize those songs more than they already are, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was really what we did at Hipgnosis was we built a global creative commercial revenue generating opportunity creating team operation system within a company that actually, although we had and owned many of the greatest songs of all time, we weren't actually a label or publisher. So we don't need to go probably for this conversation too granular into how it all works. But essentially, if you're an artist or a songwriter and you have a deal with a label or publisher, 9 times out of 10, it's the label or the publisher's job to go and make stuff happen in sync for your music.
Yeah, absolutely. And the model that Hipgnosis essentially created or expanded upon is now like the main thing that's happening when you hear about people buying catalogs. Oh, so-and-so sold their songs, they sold their catalog. It's happening more than ever now, right? And I feel like Hipgnosis really upped the ante on that and made it more of a model that people were chasing, essentially, compared to just the regular, more typical people that were in that business.
Yeah, I mean, sync has always, for 30, 40 years, has been a vital revenue stream for labels, publishers, artists, songwriters. And, I wouldn't say we worked any harder than anyone else, but we definitely did achieve some pretty great stuff. And I'm really proud of what we did there and the team we assembled. And yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic area of the music industry to work in because you're close to the artist, you're close to the music, it's a creative role, it's also a commercial role. So it's creative, which is working with the producers and the directors and the music supervisors on a creative level. There's also a commercial aspect, which is actually thrashing out the deals, negotiating deals, and getting money through the door. So and while you're doing that, you're working in music and you get a window into the film world, a window into the advertising world, a window into TV, a window into games. So it's a really good cross-section it's a fun role to have.
Absolutely. Super fun role. And a role that, like, because I know I always am talking to my artist friends, and every time they're writing a song, it's like, oh, we gotta get that one into a film, or get that one into a video game. Oh, this is perfect for that. Or let's get it into a commercial, and all that is sync. So a lot of you already know this, but just to go over that at a high level. So let's talk about where sync is still currently. It's stuck in this system that it's been in for decades, right? Like, I want to get a song into my movie. What do I do?
Good question. I think I don't want to dwell too much on the problems because I think the problems with the sync industry are fairly well documented, not least from a few articles I've written recently, which certainly seem to be chiming with quite a few people.
There's a new one that just came out that Tom wrote in Music Business Worldwide, so I'll post the link to it in there, which literally talks about 5 big problems.
Yeah. So I don't want to dwell on that. I'd encourage you to go and listen to it.
But at a high level,
essentially, the biggest problem at the moment is that if anyone in the world finds one of our songs and wants to use it once, the process that they have to go through to make that happen is incredibly arduous, incredibly complex, and incredibly confusing, and it's a famously painful process, right? So what that and by the way, this process, like if you were making a film in 1974 and you wanted to use a Simon and Garfunkel song, versus if you're making a film in 2025 and you want to use a Simon and Garfunkel song, the process you go through is exactly the same. Do you know what I mean? The process has never been improved upon to any discernible degree. And it's no one's fault. Let me be very clear about that. It's no one's fault. It's just the way it is. Now, the reason this is a problem is because in 1974, there were quite a few less films being made, okay?
Yes.
Or pieces of visual content. As has been well documented, the amount of visual content being created today is quite eye-watering, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger. The challenge is that for each individual use of a song still requires that arduous, painful process. So what it means in practice is that we as the music industry are only licensing our music to the people, the customers, who are willing to go through that process. Okay. And the people who are willing to go through that process are the big companies with big teams of people who have capacity to go through that process. So you're talking the Disney, the Netflix, the HBO, the Nike, everyone who is not one of those companies cannot go through that process, so they're not using commercial music. And into that vacuum has come library music, production music, purpose-made utility music, which currently makes $1.3 billion a year in sync. Commercial music, so every record company in the world combined only makes half of that in sync.
Wow.
Okay. So it's our assertion that unknown utility music is not making twice as much as every record company in the world combined, because utility production music, library music is better. It's making twice as much as record companies because it's easy and it's fast and it's instant. Of course, it's cheaper, but it's that instant transaction.
Yep.
So if someone wants to use a piece of library music, it's purpose made for sync, right? So not only on the creative side, but also on the licensing side. If anyone in the world finds one piece of utility music and wants to use it once, they go to one place, buy it, one place, buy it, one place, buy it. On the contrary, if anyone in the world finds a piece of commercial music, they want to use it, this is where it's different. They have to speak to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different companies, negotiate with them all individually, in isolation, over days, weeks, however long it may be, okay?
Crazy.
So, and as a lot of your listeners will know, any song you hear on the radio has 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different companies attached to it, right? There's different pieces of rights on every track because we collaborate now. We're human beings. We collaborate.
Tons of writers on the track.
Tons of writers. Each of those writers is represented by a different company. So this is the challenge that we are working to fix. And the reason we're doing it is not purely because we just want something to do. It's actually because we see it as a crisis for artists and songwriters, in that the longer as an industry we fail to improve the experience of our customers, the more attractive the alternatives to using commercial music are going to seem.
Absolutely.
Okay. So library music, production music, which, by the way, I have nothing against library music, production music. A lot of my friends work in there.
For sure.
I'm actually in awe of what it's achieved.
Yeah, it's incredible.
But that's been hugely successful, more successful than perhaps commercial music. But the robots haven't even started yet.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm like, at the moment, I think commercial music is not getting a significant piece of the pie as it should.
Yeah.
But when the robots really kick in, we need to be ready.
Yeah, when the libraries are just full of AI music and you don't even know that, and you're like, oh, this matches my song. I'll pay a couple bucks or $20 or $100 or whatever it is. Yeah. Compared to what you can get from commercial music, of course. So in making a system, because right now, because you're a YouTuber, right? You are a podcaster, you're any of these other things. You're not just a Tom Cruise movie, right? And those people are just using libraries. That's all. That's the only option, really. But so do you think that in terms of making this new system so commercial music is more accessible, it democratizes it and allows it to actually be more accessible price-wise as well, because then more people can maybe achieve it?
Yeah. I mean, I think so first things first, we're not claiming to have identified a new problem, right? People have been talking about the fact that the sync industry is still operating as it was
30 years ago.
30 years ago. And actually, there are a number of really, really exciting companies who are trying to fix this. So as some of your listeners may not know, there are now 25 what we're calling sync DSPs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they are online customer-facing licensing shops.
Yeah.
Where anyone in the world, that is YouTubers, those podcasters, the brands, whoever it may be, can go to these platforms and essentially buy a license for a song. They can say, I'm making a commercial for my micro swimwear brand. I'm putting it on Instagram and TikTok for 4 weeks. I want it on YouTube for 6 months. I want this song. Here's my credit card.
And these are platforms like Epidemic Sound? Or is that
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
There's 25.
Yeah.
But the issue with all of these companies are facing is that there's none of them have yet managed to get a significant level of commercial music into their shops.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So we've got the shops, they're live, they're working, they're in the marketplace. However, there's no music in there.
Yes.
Okay. And what we've realized when I stepped out of working at majors is that there's actually a missing piece to this puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got all the labels and publishers, we've got all the shops, but there's no connecting data layer, and that's what we've built.
Because the data is that's why you have to talk to 6 different people is to figure out, can you do this song? Does everyone approve it within this camp? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the equivalent I've been giving to people recently is take a traditional DSP like Spotify, Deezer, Tidal, Amazon Music, whatever it may be. Those DSPs could not operate without standardized metadata.
Yeah.
As an industry, we've all standardized and adopted the same format for metadata.
Yes.
And it's that standardized metadata that enables the digital music economy to work.
Yes.
Okay. What we've not yet done is standardized sync metadata.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sync metadata is things like, is this song available for a meat advert? Yes, no, maybe. Is this song available for an alcohol advert? Yes, no, maybe. Okay. So once we've standardized that sync metadata format and we've all adopted it, sync can actually move from the analog world into the digital age. And the reason I don't want to dwell on the problems is that actually this is not only the solution, the opportunity for artists and songwriters is immense.
Absolutely.
And there's some crazy numbers being put out about how immense the opportunity is. We need to imagine a world like every other area of the music industry has been digitized.
Yeah.
Or modernized.
Yes.
Okay. I had a manager the other day saying, well, what about live? And I'm like, even the live industry have got QR codes. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
But the potential, almost without exception, the digitization of the music industry has been enormously successful, certainly for labels and publishers, also for a lot of artists and songwriters.
Absolutely.
So our view is, why should sync be any different?
Yes. And I know personally, I've had big artists say to me that they want that. Like they want their songs to be accessible for all these other opportunities instead of just people that are able to have the 5 or 6 meetings and chase something down and make something happen for a movie.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop that from happening.
No.
Right. But even like I've made 2 documentaries now, right? The shooting of the documentary, an incredible time, right? Long time. The hardest part was when we finished the movie, and both of our music docs were on different music figures, right? We had the Trap Jazz documentary, which we did via Disney, and we had, we had Quincy Jones and Big Boy and T.I. and all these people in the documentary, right? So we want to use trap. We want to use Atlanta trap music. Getting the sync, like the licenses, was so insane. And so many of the songs that we wanted, we couldn't even get to the right people. We were chasing it. It ended up pushing back our release months, and it ended up being the size of the budget of the entire documentary. Immediate Family, our other documentary that we made, which we sold to Magnolia, which is on the session players that made, Tapestry for Carole King, and they made like all these hits, right? Running on Empty and like Boys of Summer, like huge hits. We spent as much money on the sync as we did on it, and it was hard and difficult, right? And you have to bring in the person, so it's like, it's not going to take away those jobs or anything. It's going to keep all of that, but it would be so much nicer because you have independent filmmakers, so you have content creators, then you have independent filmmakers, then you have major filmmakers, right? Let alone video games, and there's more and more video games coming out as individuals can create their own video games now, and that's all just growing. So it would be so nice to have. I've had artists, literally big artists, say to me, especially like younger big artists that are in their 20s and 30s, be like, "Man, I want to be in there. I want to be accessible to this." Yeah.
I mean, I'm just unsurprised. It's a highly complex person, and by the way, like you say, that's a project which has people like you attached, people like the people you listed.
I can call the artist and say, "Yo, can I have this song in my film?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, I bet, sure, go for it." But then but no, they don't actually have the say, Then like maybe they connect me with their manager, and then boom, now there's 20 meetings, there's emails, I'm following up on emails, handing it off to, you have to put a person We had to get
So,
full-time people or,
so
people
that
dedicated to that in order to run that.
exactly. And that process was absolutely fine when there was less visual content being created, right?
And a
But
tech stack that can't support it that way.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it was fine and it was serviceable. But the issue at the moment is that that process was tolerated by brands and by the entertainment industry when two things were true. Firstly, brands were only making 1 or 2 adverts a year. So they'd only have to go through this process every 6-12 months.
Yeah.
And when commercial music was the only shop in town.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like 20 years ago, yeah, you could use library music, but it didn't sound too great.
Right.
So both of those facts have now changed. Firstly, brands are no longer making 1 or 2 adverts a year. They're making 200 or 300 pieces of branded content.
Yep.
And the alternatives to using commercial music now sound incredible because the democratization, the people in the business, like the quality of library music, production music now is just insane, and it's easier and it's cheaper. So I really feel that artists and songwriters are entitled to a level playing field in terms of how easy it is to use their music.
Yes.
Now, of course, commercial music is always going to be more expensive. Like, there's always going to be a customer type who just wants the cheapest music, and that's fine. But not only is commercial music way more expensive, it's also way more complicated.
Yep.
So I want artists and songwriters to be in complete control of their pricing. They can price their music expensive or they can price their music affordable. But let's not have this complex administrative process standing in the way between our customers and our music, our artists and songwriters.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about Alloy specifically. Alloy is your new company. So, like you said, the problem is, like, there's these buyers, there's these sellers. The data needs to be connected. So how are you doing that?
So the original idea for this, when we realized that actually we've got the factories, which are the labels and publishers, we've got the shops, which are all the sync DSPs, but there's nothing connecting the two. It's almost like, I'm sure a lot of your listeners use PayPal, right? PayPal is not a factory, it's not a shop, it's actually a standardized infrastructure which connects every buyer to every seller.
Yeah.
And it enables, firstly, customers to buy products way more easier. It enables factories to sell products way more easier. And it's all just standardized. So you've got it all locked and loaded and saved. So that's essentially what we've built. And what it actually does is so just let me talk about the process of a sync deal.
Yes, please.
Someone in the world finds a song and wants to use it once. They then our customer then has to embark on a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 week process, which involves genuinely 200 to 300 emails with 5, 6, 7 different companies in order to get a yes, no, maybe. Okay?
My God.
So obviously, the only people who are going to go through that process are the types of people who are really committed to doing it. Okay. Yeah. But that process, so they find the song, they want to use it, they embark on this several week process to get a yes, no, maybe. What we've done by standardizing sync metadata is we enable artists and songwriters to choose their preferences up front. Okay, so they don't have to go through, so the customer doesn't have to go through this long process to find out that one of the songwriters is a vegan or one of the songwriters is a climate change campaigner, right? So what we've done by standardizing the format of sync metadata and then providing this standardized pipework through which that standardized data can flow, what we've done is we've moved the yes, no, maybe from the end of the 5-week process to the start of the 5-week process.
So smart.
Okay. So you're an artist, you're a songwriter, you choose your preferences up front. You say, I'm fine with that. I'm not fine with that. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I'm not fine with that. For anything like that, I want to have approval. My price is this, and these are my terms and conditions. You choose it up front, and then you turn it on. So that when the customer wants to buy it, they get an instant decision.
So when there's 5 or 6 writers and an artist with a feature on a track, they each all say their specifics of what they're okay for. Okay, I'm okay with this to be in an alcohol commercial. I'm okay with this to be in a like a meat ad or a dairy ad or whatever it is. And then Alloy will essentially take everyone's input and then align it so, okay, with everyone's input for this one track, these are okay. These kind of adverts are okay.
Yeah, and this is another key point, right? So not only do we need a standardized format for these preferences. So, for example, Harry Styles writes a song with Ed Sheeran. They choose their settings up front, right? So Harry Styles might be a vegan, Ed Sheeran might be a climate change campaigner, right? And they do that in complete privacy in their own time. Then, because we've not only standardized the format, but the pipeline through which that information can flow, Harry Styles's preferences and Ed Sheeran's both go into the same pipe, and when they into the main back end of Alloy, and when those two say they wrote a song and they've got 50% each, because they're coming into the same place, Harry Styles' preferences can be fused together with Ed Sheeran's preferences to generate the combined set of terms and conditions upon which that song is or isn't available. Okay. And by creating that, because often there's not 2 songwriters, there's 4, 5, 6. When we've brought together all of those individual human beings' preferences and wishes and concerns and needs and requirements, we've standardized the format. So Harry Styles has the same boxes to fill out as Ed Sheeran. It pulls them all together so it fuses into one licensable object or an alloy, right?
Yes.
So what we're doing is we're going away from a world where if a customer wants to use a song, they have to speak to 5 or 6 or 7 different companies, to now if a customer wants to use a song, it's just one licensable object or an alloy, which is just this song is fully turned on by all the artists, all the songwriters, and oh, by the way, it's not available for this, it's not available for that. For that, it needs approval, and this is pre-cleared, right? So we're factoring in all of the individual artists and songwriters' individual preferences and wishes, because everyone's different, but creating one licensable entity. And the reason this is so exciting, in our view, is that library music, production music is wildly successful in large part because it's one-stop shop. Okay, so you want it, you buy it, you want it, you buy it. As you remember from what I said earlier, that's not the same for commercial music.
Right.
But with this system, it now is the same.
It can be.
Because we've essentially created the system, the format, and the infrastructure to enable all commercial music to become one-stop shop, while at the same time taking into account all of the creators' wishes, preferences, and requirements.
It's incredible. It's amazing. Like, obviously, this needs to exist, and it's so great that you're building it. It's so smart how you're building it, and only someone like you could build it because you understand the problem intimately. Like, you've been doing it for so many years, and you've already dealt with all these people, right? Like, they've been your peers. They've been your sellers, like everything, right? And the buyers. So like for where you're at and the connections you have and stuff, as you're bringing this to people, what's the response?
I think really positive.
Nice.
It's definitely a mindset shift for people. Like, I think, you know, we've worked in such a way. And by the way, this is like Sync has been wildly successful, a great area. It's broken artists, it's made artists and songwriters a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
But I think even the artists and songwriters who make money in Sync would still like to make more.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like,
I know what you mean.
Like the amount of artists, I mean, if you imagine, like, what is it, 100,000 tracks a day now?
Yeah.
1 million tracks a week, whatever it may be.
Going to Spotify.
Imagine the level. I'm not saying they're all great tracks, but
they're not.
It is so competitive that it's all being diluted.
Yeah.
And I think like if we can find a way to just remove the friction and move to a digital way of doing this, like every other area of the music industry has done, the opportunity for artists and songwriters is immense. So the reaction has been really, really positive. It's a big mindset shift. But everyone I speak to actually understands the potential, not only the problem, but the solution and actually the level of potential.
Wow. So where are you at right now?
The platform, version 1 of the platform is built, it's live, it's operational. We have 3 of the top 10 music companies coming on board, soon to be 4. There's still work to do, obviously. But it's feeling very positive. I mean, it's feeling very, there's still a huge amount of work, you know?
Yeah.
And I think like, you know, I've always been a company guy. I've
I was
always
just
been
gonna say,
a major. So I'm like coming over to your world
How
a
do you
little
feel
bit.
being a founder?
So it wasn't, I didn't like leave my job and then sit down with a pen and paper and say, right, I want to be a founder. What can I do?
Yeah.
It was actually, I thought I knew what I was going to do and I was having a lot of meetings about it, but it's actually then this thing came to me, and the more people I spoke to about it, the more it quickly overtook what I thought I was going to do. So it was more the problem and the solution that found me. And then I was like, someone should really build this. And I was like, oh, shit, I think it's got to be me. But no, it's great. I was actually reminded, I was thinking on the way here, it's quite funny. There's an old, I believe there's an old JFK quote, which is, I think they were talking about going to the moon. And his quote was, we do this not because it's easy, but we do this because it's hard.
Yeah.
Right? And I saw something the other day, someone posted, and it was in the area of music, tech, founders, startups. And the quote was, we do this not because it's easy, but because we thought it would be easy.
That is so classic founder. Be like, I can do this. 7 years later, still pushing forward.
No, but you know, if I think like in reflection, like I've been on this journey for like 18 months. Like if I'd had the door slammed in my face day one, I would have given up. So thankfully there's enough people who are like, do you know what? I think we can actually fix this. So that keeps me going. And you know what it's like to be a founder, startup, like there's good days, there's tough days, but I've just got this, I've got this tailwind. Like if ever there's a bad moment, like I've just got this weird tailwind that just sort of picks me up again. And that I think is like this drive to fix this. Like there's probably not one listener who's an artist or a songwriter who's like, do you know what? Sync probably isn't quite working for me as well as I'd like it. I'd like more sync.
It must be a metadata sync problem.
Yeah. They're probably not thinking about metadata, but
no, well, I mean, I hear so many complaints about metadata from artists, of course, from especially musicians, session players, engineers, etc., because Spotify only puts in their metadata and their credits that they display on show credits. They only show performers, songwriters, and then like label source, whatever.
Yeah,
that's it, and producer, right? So, but the fact that how important the engineers are, how important, depending on the song, like the guitar melody may be the main melody or the string arrangement or whatever it may be. And so, and the fact that they have that metadata for sure, because when that gets ingested, it has everything, right? But Spotify just chooses not to display that. So I really feel like, which must be a choice. I'd love to actually talk with Spotify about this, because I've had people that have quit Spotify talk to me about it. And it's obviously a choice to just not display those tables of like, it's like, but whatever. So anyways, metadata is in a problematic form at the top of musicians' mind when it comes to like, I'm not being shown that I have credit on this, because even just being shown, even if you may still be getting your money, but being shown is what gets you more work, therefore more money, right?
True.
And that's gone. So, or it's not gone, but it's diminished, and it's all right there. It could be like Spotify could be the most incredible platform, as Tidal does, and Apple is starting to do more and stuff, but they're still not just displaying. Why not just show all the data? It's just a screen full of data, anyways, right? There's not like a UI needs to be made to make it look fancy. So, the more the metadata problem gets fixed, whether it's in sync or it's in songwriting or whatever it is, because there's also, with that amount of output being shipped to DSPs, 100,000 songs a day, a lot of times you have artists that are not giving all the metadata, depending on how many collaborators there are on a song, which is getting crazier and crazier.
Yeah.
So
I would say there are people trying to fix all data for the whole music industry, and I salute them.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
I salute them, and I really want them to fix it all. I can't do that. I'm just focusing on my fairly focused area that I can fix.
Yeah.
And it's not small, but it's smaller. It's manageable. There's certain sets of rules. And I think like the reason this has not been fixed yet is because like people are trying to fix this.
Yeah.
But the problem is everyone's trying to fix the same problem on their own in isolation while at the same time competing with each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So every music company, like if you think of a track on the radio, 5 companies attached to it. They're in partnership on the song, but at a zoomed out level, they're competing with each other.
Yeah.
It's like there's no centralized, it's agnostic, truly impartial scenario. So that's why we've stepped out of the sort of traditional industry, the major system, to be that impartial. So we're not tied to any label, we're not tied to any DSP, we're not tied to anyone, because in order for this to be fixed industry-wide, it requires someone, a company that is truly impartial.
Yeah.
So that's just the different approach we're taking. Like people are trying to fix this, but the challenge is they're all competing with each other, and that can't work. So yeah, that was actually the light bulb moment was when I stepped out of working for a major music company. I got an industry-wide, impartial industry-wide vantage point where I was like, oh shit, we've all been trying to fix the same problem on our own in isolation while at the same time competing with each other.
Yeah, and holding all the info to yourself.
That's why it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And same thing, data problem in the live music industry, which is why I started JAMMCARD. We're the only structured database of the touring world, right? So the only place where you can find out who's Beyonce's drummer is on JAMMCARD, right?
Nice.
Or who is Drake's front of house engineer, or who's the musical director for Dua Lipa, or any of those kind of things. It's like JAMMCARD's the only place that can do that.
Brilliant.
We have all that data structured and everything. And you know how often the labels or any of those people ask us for the data? Never.
Yeah.
They don't give a right? The musicians do, and the touring personnel do, and the music directors do, and the creative directors do, and the tour directors and all that. Like our world cares, and our world. I started JAMMCARD because I felt that musicians were at the bottom of the barrel of our own industry, and then when I saw tour budgets as I became a music director, and I saw musicians as like a bottom line item, I was like, oh, dude, that's it. There it is, right? So like. We're both trying to solve these data issues in completely different worlds, right? Like, but I feel like yours is actually more achievable.
Well, you're ahead of us. I'm
earlier, but
I'm in awe of what you guys at JAMMCARD are doing. But yeah, I think it is achievable, and that's like one of the things that keeps me going. Like,
I would love for this to exist, dude. That would have made both documentaries that made so much easier. We'd be able to do so much more with the pod and just all the content we make. Even when I think about the Jam, right, and us like. Wanting to have artists or even covering, because like I said, I'll have an artist play the Jam and I want to like commercially release it. And I'm like, the artist already played.
The really rewarding ones are ones where we work with an artist who people aren't household names, but they've got great music, and you work and you get it over the line, and it really means something to these artists.
Yeah, absolutely.
And especially when, we've worked on the creative a bit more, like tracks we've made specifically for trailers or tracks we've made specifically for projects, and having that real close creative process when you've been in the studio and that's like really rewarding. But
I mean, that's an A&R role.
Yeah. It's like sync A&R.
Sync A&R.
That's so super rewarding. I think but as zooming back to the start of the conversation, like there's two sides to working in sync, right? There's the creative stuff, which is like, right, speaking to the artists, producers, making something, and then obviously the creative pitching of it all, but then it's negotiating the deal. And, you know, so it's like, I think even smaller ones or less historic ones are almost more rewarding.
Yes, absolutely, man. That's so fun. So how do we get songs into the F1? Make my dreams come true.
That's maybe episode 2, right? You could take, if you're going to the Grand Prix this weekend, you could take over a bag.
Oh my God, dude, please. You know, Tom took me to get a sticky toffee pudding last night. Let me tell you, it tastes better here. Everything's better here. I'm having so much fun being here.
I was just disappointed. I was like, Elmo, you're going to love this. It's called a sticky toffee pudding. And like, yeah, this has been invented in LA. Don't worry.
Yeah, we've copied you, mate. Yeah. But it was spectacular.
It was good stuff.
And very, very, very special. Okay, so when you were at Hipgnosis versus BMG versus UMG, how is Sync different at those companies?
It's similar in a lot of ways. You know, you've got a huge catalog of music. You've got almost unlimited opportunity to license all of those songs into the entire global entertainment industry. It's not so much the fact that the companies are different, it's more how the market's evolved.
Yeah.
So like, you know, when I was at Universal from 2006 to 2013, it wasn't pre-social media, but it was pre what social media is today.
Right.
And it was, I would say it was a little less mature. Like you could just call up your friend who worked at an ad agency and say, hey, have you heard this track? And they were like, well, this is great. I'm going to put it on my advert. You know, it was more, I'm not going to say primitive, but it was more like you had a bit more control. I think like.
Yeah, for sure. It was a lot more who you know.
Yeah, who you know, making connections. I think like there's obviously a big bit of that, but the amount of visual content being created is just so overwhelming now for everyone, and the amount of music being released that has been diluted somewhat. It's like Apple aren't making one advert a year, they're making 400. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, and you never quite know. And all of those adverts are like I mentioned, the Apple silhouette ones, like Apple would do one advert a year and they were global iconic moments.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's changed now. They're making 300 and they're all creatively fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's not the monoculture anymore. So it's like thousands more smaller things.
Absolutely.
And that's the issue, really, that even though there are now thousands more smaller sync placements, each one of those individual uses of an artist or songwriter's song still requires this 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 week process. So it's actually for the labels and publishers, it's actually a capacity issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like it's not worth their time to process. They're like, often they can only focus on the bigger ones because it's you know, at a big label, big publisher, like every sync deal is going to touch maybe 8, 10, 12 people in the organization, all of whom have got to do several emails and processing and
weighs it down.
Invoices and licensing and business affairs and negotiation and creative and picture. You know, it's like, so it's a huge resource drain. And that was fine when brands were making one advert a year.
Yeah.
But they're now making hundreds. So it's like a resource capacity type thing.
Is that where the opportunity was for Hipgnosis to come and just put emphasis on it and focus on it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say Hipgnosis had like a better approach than anyone else. Like anyone who works in sync at a big label, indie label, any label or publisher, like if you've devoted your career to working in sync, you've got to be super, super passionate, super skilled, super like really care about these, really hardworking. Like everyone's working as hard as they can, but everyone's just drowning in manual paperwork.
Dude.
So it's just a capacity type issue.
From the artist perspective, so if I'm an indie artist and I want to try to get commercial sync, I'm not trying to get into a library, what are my options? How do I do that?
Well, essentially, as sync is still 100% manual.
Yeah.
If you are an artist or a songwriter or a manager or a label or a publisher, and you want to get sync, because it's 100% manual, your only option is to hire people.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's great, but not every artist, manager, songwriter can afford to hire people, or certainly not enough people.
Yep.
So there's a real, I think, you will find that the artists and songwriters who are succeeding in sync are the really big artists who can either afford to hire people or have, are in a label or publisher system where they're the top priority. But for everyone else, there's a gap, 100%.
For everyone else, you got to essentially invest in getting that person on your team for now.
Yeah, you have. But the challenge is even big management companies, right, have in the past hired a sync person.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, in the way that the sync industry works, it's quite unrealistic to expect your one hire to be able to service the entire global entertainment industry. There's 3,000 or 4,000 decision makers. How can one person possibly give those people a white glove experience? They can't. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's challenging. It's definitely challenging. But thankfully, as I said at the top, there are a number of people trying to fix this and trying to solve this. And I think the opportunity is immense.
Well, they need you, Tom. We need Alloy. Thank you for building it. I hope I make money from it somehow.
You will. You will.
Anything else you want to touch on?
I don't think so.
How much you love me being in London?
No, the only thing I was going to say was I was feeling quite confident about this podcast and feeling good about it. And then on the way here, I listened to or watched your episode of the Victoria Canal. And
oh my God, that's one of the, I
was just like, how do I follow that? She's just a boss. And I was actually thinking on the chair, I was like, I hope Elmo's intro for me is half as gushing as it was.
Well, you can't compare yourself to Victoria. She's incredibly special. And you're,
know, right?
You're just Tom, dude. You're just my mate, dude. So, what's awesome is Victoria was living in the UK.
Yeah.
And now she moved to LA, and she moved a mile away from me.
Of course she did.
It's so nice. And she's amazing. Let's get some Victoria syncs.
Too right.
Let's go. Right. Well, dude, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, I love what you're doing.
I just love that we get to hang more. And for everybody out there, check out Alloy. What's the URL?
Alloy.music.
Alloy.music. You can remember that. And let's go. Let's modernize sync. Let's get behind Tom. Let's go. We're on the road, my guy. Good to see you, bro.
Thanks, Elmo.
Go with Elmo. Go with Elmo. Go with Elmo. Go with Elmo. Go with Elmo. Go with Elmo. Go with Elmo. This is the stuff, man.